England are out of the Cricket World Cup after losing by 15 runs to Bangladesh. The side's dismal campaign saw them win only one of their 5 matches, with the final game against Afghanistan dead rubber. I'm joined by IBT Sport editor Nick Howson. And Nick, have England hit rock bottom here?
Absolutely. One victory to a Scotland team that have arguably been the worst of any team in the World Cup. An early exit with 1 game to go. The ignominy of having to play Afghanistan in a dead rubber in Sydney. A limp performance, I think, at best in defeat to Bangladesh. Just the campaign in itself, yes, it's one of the worst periods in terms of one-day cricket that really many can remember. It's been the end of a sort of probably the worst 12 months that I'm sure the ECB can remember. Certainly their ruling of the game has been inadequate, to say the least. If you trace all the way back from the whitewash defeat in Australia, where England lost the Ashes, the debacle around Kevin Pietersen's removal from the team, regardless of whether you actually agree with the decision or not, the manner of it was handled very poorly. The problems with Jonathan Tross, of course, amid that. There's been a few injuries as well. Matt Pryor in the Test team, particularly. James Anderson, Stuart Broad have missed times, and we hosted Sri Lanka, defeat there. Alistair Cook's form, his sacking 2 months before the tournament. Again, regardless of whether you agree with the decision, poorly timed and not indicative of a team that have been planning for a major tournament for a couple of years, like a lot of other teams will have been. And then we get to the tournament, and England make haphazard decisions around their selection policy. They move players around just for the first match of the tournament. James Taylor, is he going to bat at 3? No, they're going to change that. Is Stephen Finn going to bowl? Not bowling well, let's persist anyway. So from start to finish, particularly if you just use the last 12 months, really it's no surprise that we're at this point where we're even considering this is probably England's lowest ebb.
And there's been criticism to various aspects of England here, but who lies at fault? Is it Peter Moores, the coach? Is it Morgan, the captain? Is it the ECB?
I think you've got to start at the top. I think because a lot of the reasons why England have failed so badly goes back further than, for example, Peter Moores is being reinstated. Goes further back than Alistair Cook being sacked. This goes back some years. So I think that there's certainly been a lack of planning here. This looked very much on the whim. This campaign. So you've got to look at the likes of Paul Downton, Giles Clarke. You've got to look at those guys. The decisions they've made. Andy Flower arguably could also be held accountable as well, given how his lengthy involvement in the team and how he inadequately straddled both positions before Ashley Giles took over as well. That wasn't dealt with particularly well. Particularly that was sort of a year out from the World Cup, and that didn't go down too well as well. Naturally, of course, the players have not performed well, but I don't think they've been in an environment of which they can. I think a lot of people still believe there are some really talented players in that team that have gone on and failed in this World Cup. So we have to look at the higher powers, and there has to be, you would think, some serious changes there. Whether that means Peter Moores as well. My gut instinct says that it would be a little unfair to see him go straight away. I think we have to see what progression he makes in the Test arena to see whether he deserves to stay on, and we'll see that in the summer most certainly. But I think we have to look at the higher powers before we look at the guys on the front line, if you know what I mean.
And where do England go from here? I mean, obviously this is in terms of tests, this is an Ashes year, so that's on the horizon, and then just looking even further forward for England's future ODI playing style.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot been made of the playing style, and I still don't think. I think this tracks all the way back to when Duncan Fletcher was in charge. England used to try and take advantage of the power play overs and keep wickets in hand and basically, chance their arm in the final 10 overs. That's a strategy that appears really not to have changed at all. England still don't have a great deal amount of hitters in their team. They're not developing those sorts of players, and still really aren't. There are one or two inventive. Owen Morgan's lost his inventive style. Okay, Josh Butler's probably the only one we can think of now. So yes, I think there's a lot to do with the style. There's been lots of jiggery-pokery with the domestic, the schedule in the season, moving T20 matches around, fiddling with the one-day tournament, whether to even have the one-day tournament as well. Obviously, there's been a less onus on the four-day game, less importance stressed on it certainly. So I think that I'm not here to present all the answers, but certainly I think there needs to be this needs to be the opportunity to say, okay, fine, England, we need to move on. We also need to learn. So I think there's a lot of questions to be asked, and that unfortunately, regardless of whether the Ashes at this issue or not, they need to start now.
Well, for all our coverage of the Cricket World Cup, go to our website, ibtimes.co.uk.